Hey there, and welcome to today's Explainer. Right now, we are taking a stylized, microscopic road trip through the absolute final stage of your digestive system. We're going to explore the beautiful, natural morphology of the large intestine, and trust me, we've kept the visuals natural and eye-catchy for this journey. You really should forget everything you thought you knew about digestion, because this final stretch, it's a stunning piece of biological architecture, perfectly designed to perform some of the most crucial, life-sustaining tasks in the human body. So I want you to picture this for a second. What actually happens to your meal once your small intestine extracts all the good stuff? The fats, the proteins, the carbohydrates. Once they're gone, what is left over? Well, you're left with the ultimate waste management biological problem. Think of it like your body's most high-tech, self-cleaning recycling plant. How does the body safely, cleanly, and efficiently process what it can't use, while still recovering any valuable resources that remain? That is exactly the puzzle your lower digestive tract solves every single day. Okay, before we go any further, let's clearly define what we're actually looking at today. When we study the anatomy of the large intestine, we're basically identifying its distinct physical parts. But when we talk about its morphology, we're looking at its structural form and shape. And morphologically speaking, it is a muscular tube extending from the ileum of the small intestine all the way down to the anus. It is literally the body's elegant solution for conserving water, housing beneficial bacteria, and ultimately processing waste. So here is our biological map for today. We're going to meet the large intestine, break down its anatomy, trace the digestive journey, uncover its core functions, zoom in on the gut microbiota, and finally compare the small and large intestines side by side. Section 1. Meet the large intestine. 1.5 meters. Think about that for a second. That is the length of the large intestine in an average adult. It's a surprisingly impressive length for just the final leg of the digestive tract. And here's a fun fact. Even though it's called the large intestine, that name actually comes from its width, not its length. But still, neatly fitting 1.5 meters of this highly specialized muscular tube inside your abdominal cavity requires an incredibly efficient folded morphology.
Moving on to Section 2, the anatomy of the intestine.
Let's play tour guide for a minute and look at the biological entry and exit points. The whole process kicks off at the cecum, which is this pouch-like structure that receives material directly from the small intestine, completely controlled by the ileocecal valve. And you'll notice the appendix is attached right there too. Now, skipping all the way to the very end of the line, we have the rectum. That's a straight portion that temporarily stores feces until it fills up and stimulates the urge to go. Finally, the anal canal and anus serve as the final passage and external opening to expel the waste. But what connects that entry point at the cecum to the exit at the rectum? Well, that would be the colon. It's the longest part of the large intestine, and it beautifully frames your entire abdomen. Morphologically, we break it down into 4 main sections. First, the ascending colon travels straight upward on your right side. Then, the transverse colon runs horizontally right across your upper abdomen. Next, the descending colon travels downward on your left side. And finally, it curves into the sigmoid colon, this S-shaped section that helps move and store fecal matter right before it hits the rectum. Let's look at Section 3, the digestive journey. So here is the exact chronological roadmap of your waste. Partially digested material drops from the small intestine right into the cecum. From there, muscle contractions propel it upward through the ascending colon, across the transverse colon, and down the descending colon, into that S-shaped sigmoid colon. Ultimately, the newly formed feces are stored in the rectum until defecation removes a waste through the anus. It's just a highly reliable, incredibly systematic one-way journey. Section 4. The core functions. Now, let's look at its primary jobs. Remember, unlike the small intestine, this zone has very, very limited involvement in digesting nutrients. Instead, its whole focus is on recovery and processing. You see, as undigested food materials, dead cells, and mucus enter, they contain a massive amount of water. The large intestine's major function is to absorb that water along with important electrolytes, things like sodium and chloride, to keep your body's fluid levels balanced. And by doing that, it gradually converts that watery waste into solid feces. Let's connect this to real life because the pacing of this journey is absolutely everything. If the large intestine absorbs too little water as things pass through, the stools remain watery, which contributes to diarrhea. On the flip side, if the movement through the colon is way too slow, it removes too much water, the stools get hard, and that contributes to constipation. It's a remarkably delicate balancing act, and it's happening inside you 24/7. Which brings us to Section 5, the gut microbiota. Because guess what?
You are not alone in there. The large intestine contains a massive, bustling population of beneficial microorganisms known as the gut microbiota. These bacteria act like your biological business partners. And they have some literal superpowers. They ferment the undigested carbohydrates and fiber that your own body just couldn't break down. And during that process, they produce highly useful substances. They even synthesize vital vitamins for you, like vitamin K and some B vitamins. They're absolutely essential for maintaining a normal, healthy intestinal environment. Section 6. Small versus large intestine. When you compare their physical morphology side by side, the differences are pretty striking. The small intestine is built specifically for nutrient absorption, right? So it needs massive surface area. It's about 6 meters long, it's narrower, and it's lined with these tiny finger-like projections called villi. The large intestine is built totally differently to extract water and form feces. It's much shorter at just 1.5 meters, it has a significantly wider diameter, and it completely lacks those villi. Continuing that comparison into their functions, you can see how specialized they are. Both absorb water, sure, but it is the major, number one function of the large intestine. The small intestine handles almost all the major nutrient absorption, whereas the large intestine's nutrient uptake is incredibly limited. And most uniquely, the large intestine is entirely responsible for forming feces, and it hosts a wildly abundant population of gut bacteria compared to the small intestine.
So, the large intestine really is your body's ultimate biological recycling center. Its anatomy is perfectly shaped to absorb water and salts, support trillions of beneficial bacteria, and safely store and remove waste. But remember, those hardworking bacteria, they rely entirely on what you send down to them. So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a question. Is your current diet giving your gut microbiota the fiber they need to thrive? Think about that during your next meal, and take care of your incredible digestive system.